Hi guys, this is Prasad and in this video I am going to demonstrate JMS high availability. Before we look at the demo, let's have a look at our problem statement. So here we have an application ABC which is using JMS queue for async communication. Since JMS queue is a singleton object, it is a single point of failure. So the solution here is to utilize Oracle WebLogic clustered JMS for high availability. Let's have a look at how the solution looks like. So we have two nodes horizontal cluster on WebLogic. We are using JDBC store as the persistent store. Migration policy is set to always on the persistent store. Migration basis is database for the cluster. We are using a distributed queue which is targeted to a JMS server which is targeted to our horizontal cluster. Let's have a look at the demo in action. So here I have two applications basically. One is sending to the queue and one is consuming from the queue. So let's send few messages and let's see whether it lands on the queue. As you can see, currently the messages are landing on my consumer application, which is getting fetched from the queue by my consumer application. So here the idea is, even if I shut down one of the managed server, I should be able to continue sending the messages to the queue, and the consumer should be able to fetch the messages from the queue even if one of the managed servers is in down state. Let's go to our admin console and let's shut down one of the managed servers to demonstrate this. So I'm shutting down MS01. I'll wait for it to completely shut down. So it is shut down. Now let's send few more messages. As you can see, now the messages are landing on my consumer even though one of the managed server is down. Let me start my managed server now. Once this is started, I will shut down MS2 and we will demonstrate by sending few more messages to the queue. It is running. Now I am going to shut down the second managed server. We'll wait for this to shut down. So I think the first managed server is not yet running, but things should not be a problem. Let's see. Okay, now the first managed server is running and the second is down. Let's see what happens to our messaging app. So still I am able to receive the messages even though I bounced the second managed server. Now let me start the second managed server. Now while the managed server is coming up, we will quickly have a look at the configuration that is being done to achieve this high availability on JMS. So to achieve this high availability, what we need to have are two managed servers, preferably on two separate machines or VMs or servers, so that they can achieve true high availability. Even if the VM or the server goes down, your JMS queue would still be available, and obviously both should be part of the same cluster. So here we have MS1 and MS2 running on two separate VMs, and both are part of the same cluster. Here in this case the cluster name is cluster JMS high availability, cluster JMS HA. So once you create those two managed servers, what you need to make sure is that you go to the migration section and make sure that you have chosen both the servers as JMS service candidate servers for migration. So once you have done that, just go to the clusters and have a look at the configuration as well over there. So here you can see cluster JMS HA which we have configured. Here again go to the migration section, select the migration basis. Here we have selected database, which is recommended by Oracle as well for the proper the active failover mechanism. It is better to go for database rather than the other option is node manager. The problem with node manager is that the node manager should always be in the running state. So I can show you, rather it's not exactly the node manager but consensus. So one is database, the other is consensus. But when you select consensus, it says that this option requires node manager to be configured and running. So that actually defeats the true purpose of high availability, because if let's say that your entire server goes down, then obviously the node manager that is running on the server will also go down, and then it will affect your entire cluster. But in our case it is selected to database, so even if the entire VM goes down, still our cluster will be available. We can demo that particular instance as well. So to demonstrate that, let me just shut down my node 2. So this is node 2, just to show you ms2 is running on this. As you can see, ms2 over here it is running. So now I am going to shut it down, just to demonstrate that even if we shut down the VM, our queue should still be available to receive and to send the messages to the consumer. So let's see, I am shutting down this node. Now this node is shut down, and I'll just have a look at the status as well. As you can see that this is not reachable, and we can check the status in the machine as well, that it should not be reachable. Let's see. Yeah, as you can see, it is inactive, and we are getting a connection exception because we have shut down the VM itself. So now let's try to send some more messages. As you can see, our queue is still available because of the clustered nature and the high availability that we have configured on the JMS. So let's continue to see the configuration now. Again, as I was saying, that if you go to the migration, we have selected the migration basis as database. The data source for migration, automatic migration, is been selected, and the table name has been selected over here. I have also selected the member debt detector as enabled, which enables faster automatic service migration times with database leasing basis. So this is what I have enabled in terms of the cluster. And then if you go to migratable targets, here you can see that I can also manually choose the preferred server over here, and then I can also migrate them manually if I chose to. But if you configure the JMS like we have done here, then most probably than not, it is not required to do for you to do this manually. The only thing that you might have to consider when in the live scenario is that if you are going down for maintenance, let's say, then you can consider pausing the insertion in the queue, so that you don't end up losing any messages. You know, even though you have high availability in place, there are chances that if there is a lot of throughput in case of messages, right? You don't want to take chances, so it is better to pause the insertion in terms of maintenance. Once your insertion is paused, your consumption will take place. Once your queues are empty, you go for shutdown of one of the JVMs, get the maintenance running on that JVM, and meantime you can start the insertion in the queue, so that even though you will still technically have a downtime, it will be very minuscule compared to a singleton server, wherein you literally have to take around 1 hour of downtime to make sure that your maintenance happens properly, and then you bring your queue up. So in this particular scenario, you can really mitigate or minimize the downtime substantially. So again, going ahead, so let's go to the services section, and I will show you how we have configured the JMS server as well. So here also you can see that the persistent store has been configured as the JDBC store, and it has been targeted to a cluster. So here the common theme is every resource that we see will be targeted to a cluster. So again, if you see in the targets, you can see a cluster over here, and I have not changed much on this end, but I will show you what modules we have configured for this particular demo. So we have one distributed queue and a connection factory. So nothing much have changed in the connection factory in terms of configuration for this particular demo, but in the distributed queue as well, we can see that it is like more or less the default. The only thing that I have made sure that both have been targeted to my sub deployment, which in turn is targeted where both are part of the sub deployment and are targeted to our JMS server. Then the last thing I wanted to show you is our persistent store, basically the JDBC store that we have configured here. So here if you go to high availability, I have selected it as the distributed, the distribution policy as distributed. And if I show you the other options, let's have a look at the other options also that you have here. So there is a singleton. So by default I think it is singleton if I'm not mistaken, but make sure that you have the distributed option selected. Again, going back to the configuration, the migration policy here is set to always, and if I have to show you the other option in the migration policy, so there is off, there's a option as off, and then there is a on failure, and then there is always. So I have selected always because I want to have minimum intervention from the administrators during the maintenance. So this actually enables proper high availability when you select it as always in terms of the persistent store. Again, this particular store, JDBC persistent store, is being targeted to our cluster. So that's about it, guys. This is how you can configure JMS high availability. So JMS high availability enables us to perform the maintenance on the servers without incurring much downtime or even zero downtime in certain scenarios. So thanks for watching, guys. See you in another video. Thank you.